Blog Talk Radio.
What's happening? Hello, everybody, and welcome to Outside the Huddle. I am your host, Dr. O.T. Porter, the NGFL's Director of Communications, communicating with you directly about our NGFFL family. So each episode of Outside the Huddle will feature some of the individuals who compete with the many obstacles that we need to overcome, which allow all of us to connect and unite both on and off the field of play that make our NGFFL family so unique. We will hear from different city leaders, league members, Hall of Famers, and the many other diverse individuals that contribute to the success of the NGFFL. Tonight is super exciting because this is our inaugural episode, although every show will be really equally exciting because the lineup of guests for this show is completely superb. Tonight is supremely special because tonight we have one of our greatest and most amazing city leaders sitting in with us. So there was no better way to kick off the show than with this guy. So without any further ado, I present to you a huge contributor to the NGFFL by way of Salt Lake City, though his NGFFL board contributions take him so much further than Salt Lake City. I present to you the illustrious, handsome, and so sexy Dr. Ryan Peel. Welcome to the show, Ryan. Did I lose Ryan? Where is Ryan? There you
Hello.
are, Ryan. I got you now? Oh,
yes, I'm here.
Technical difficulty. I'll edit that out. Anyhow, welcome to the show, Ryan. I'm sorry about that. Technical difficulties, of course.
It's the inaugural one, so you got to have difficulties on the first one, right?
Something has to go wrong or it's going to be terrible. It's like a wedding, right? They say if you have a terrible wedding, then your marriage is going to be fantastic.
Well, then this whole episode will be just fantastic going forward.
It's going to be the best. Thank you so much. So, Ryan, I got I have so many different things I would like to talk to you about, but let's start at the beginning. When did you join your local league?
So my involvement with the local league started not actually playing in the local league, but actually as a member of the traveling team. So I was roped in, cajoled, bribed, kidnapped, whatever adjective or verb you want to use to describe, to join Salt Lake's team at the first Gable I went to, which was Gable 7, back in 2007 in New York City. I was a relatively fresh-faced, recently graduated from grad school and looking to find a place where I could, play flag football, but also have a better, broader social experience in the LGBT community. So the New York Gable was very eye-opening. It recognized that, hey, there's LGBT athletes that love football and can play at a high level of competition, and they're from all over the place. So New York was my awakening to the wonderful world that is NGFFL.
So when you started, there was no local league in Salt Lake City, just a travel team.
Yes, there was just the travel team, and then the following year in 2008, we actually hosted. So I kind of jumped into the deep end. That's when we were. So Salt Lake hosted the Gable in 2008, and even though it's 11 years later, we're still getting so many complaints about the snow on the last day. So again, for all of you who were there, sorry it snowed on the last day of Gable 2008. Just what happens sometimes.
Don't worry. In Houston, we had the flood, so we had the drought, and then it flooded the last day. So don't feel bad. At least you got to play in Salt Lake. We had to cancel, so you're still doing better than we did.
Yeah, exactly. So we after we hosted in '08, that's really what spurred us on locally to get a real good league up and running. You go to Gables in some of these big cities like Boston and San Diego and DC, and they've got great local leagues already up and running. But seeing Salt Lake host Gable in 2008 was eye-opening, because I saw what impact it has both for LGBT sports at the local level, but I would say even just LGBT community, to be able to host a LGBT-focused event that wasn't just a regular Pride, really emboldened and invigorated the local community, and did so much for our local league. It really launched us into success that we had. And sure, we may not have the number of teams or the amount of people that come out like the larger cities, but it's still still important, and it still was so impactful, even now that I'm talking about it 11 years later. Yeah.
So it sounds like you were sort of thrust into a leadership role, but what were you doing before you got into your leadership role? Because I think a lot of people believe often that they have to either jump right in and be a leader or never become a leader. So what were you doing before you actually were sort of thrust into the leadership role?
Yeah, so before I got really involved in the leadership roles, either as head of the traveling team, as team captain for the teams that go to Gable, or as the city leader, the local commissioner, I was a team captain. And even in my first league, I was an assistant captain, which basically meant two things. I would remind people when games were, and I would show up with Lunchables or Sunny D for treats for after the game. So it's
you
baby
always
steps.
Have Lunchables.
I'm team dad for stuff like that. Once a team dad, always a team dad. So when when you're talking about getting involved in local roles, you don't have to jump right in. You don't have to run for the local board. You don't have to run for local commissioner or city leader. It's raising your hand and helping out, maybe in even unofficial capacities, just to get your feet wet, to understand what it takes to bring success to your local league.
Was there a specific moment that clicked and you said, okay, this is a place where I need to, or I really want to take on the leadership role?
Yeah, the gentleman who got really Gable in Salt Lake up and running and got the local league up and running is a guy named Mark Barr, who is just an awesome guy, member of the NGFFL Hall of Fame, and very much well-deserved. He kind of was getting a little burned out, and I realized that someone needed to step up and take on that role, and I thought, I've got some organizational skills. I kind of know the people I'm going to be help leading. Many of them were friends, so why not? Let me try it, and if I try and fail, at least I've tried. Better to to do that than not at all. So I kind of raised my hand, and Mark kind of eased me into leadership roles. I was the team captain for the Salt Lake traveling team in 2010, which I think we went to Phoenix that year for the first time, and kind of just eased me in. Yeah, where I met the illustrious Dr. Porter, OT, for the first time, and you just kind of ease yourself into it, and again, don't be afraid to try things and fail and learn from them. And me being captain for the first time at Gable was a huge learning experience about what I needed to do and what I didn't need to do.
That is jumping in head first for sure. When you decide to captain a Gable team up front, that's a big responsibility.
Well, and I'll tell you, it was kind of, I did get thrust in a little bit because after one really intense game, I had to break up a fight between two of my players. And that's when it's, you really need to step up. And if you don't, you kind of think, well, what's going to happen? You sometimes can't rely on other people to step up, and you need to raise your hand and try. And everyone needs an opportunity to do it, or at least try.
Right. speaking of the giving people an opportunity to try or do things, what qualities do you think someone needs to possess or should be working on if they're looking to be in a leadership role in the NGFFL?
Let's see. The biggest thing, well, actually, there's three things. One is kind of understand and utilize all of the resources that are available to you. And when I say resources, I'm not just talking about people. I'm talking about, connections to businesses. I'm talking about community partners. I'm talking about, different formats and platforms to share your message and to drive awareness of your league or help plan activities, or maybe it's league apps or other software that help make leadership roles be easier to do. So be aware of what's all out there, and don't be afraid to utilize it. For the NGFFL, we've started a great online forum for sharing of ideas on a private Facebook page, and that's that is huge. That we didn't have that when I was a city leader, and the audience that's there, the wealth of knowledge and experience is just at everyone's fingertips to utilize. And so being aware of what's out there and using it to its fullest extent, that will bring immediate success as a leader. The other things that I think about that really are beneficial are communicate. Make it clear, make it often, and when you think you've communicated enough, communicate again, because whether you're talking about, when is the league going to start, what are the league dues, important events, there's no such thing as being too over-communicative. And, we've all have busy lives, and people forget. And so making clear what you're doing, communicate often and clearly will bring success. And lastly, this was a hard lesson for me to learn, and that is basically delegate or die. If you're a city leader, if you're a team captain, if you're a captain at a traveling team, you can't do it all by yourself. And if you do, you're just going to burn out so fast. So utilize, your teammates, utilize other resources, be aware, that we've talked about, and recognize that you can't do everything. I'm so much of if I want it done right, I'm going to do it myself. But that was leading to just so quick of a burnout. So don't be don't be afraid to delegate, because in delegating, you're giving people an opportunity to get their feet wet in leadership roles, so that your successor may be the guy that you delegated, communication responsibilities to, or your delegation of the social events to some person, on the league. Maybe she's the one who's going to be your future commissioner, and that's a way of easing her in, getting her experience to grow the next generation of leaders. I don't think we've talked about it enough at the NGFFL, that how we plan for future success by getting our future leaders ready, and that's delegating is a way to do it.
Well, I think our new commissioner is really big on that. Well, not new; he's reinstated. Commissioner Thurman Williams is really good about delegating and allowing people the opportunity to fly or fail, and sort of grooming that next generation of leaders. I think he's done a fantastic job, because here I am, and you just recently left us, but I never expected to be here, especially with the likes of the fantastic people I got to work with. I had the opportunity to work with as a board member. So kudos to Thurman for that, and kudos to you for bringing it up. Speaking of kudos for you, I want you to proverbially blow your own horn a little bit and tell me specifically about you. Like, how do you believe your leadership has impacted on the local, and because of what you've done for the national board and on the national level? Please tell me about you specifically. What are you proud of?
In Salt Lake, when I was the commissioner for the local league here, we were oftentimes focusing so much on just the regular mechanics of running a league, scheduling games, finding social events to do, recruiting, fundraising, that, about a year or two into it, I really had to take a step back and say, why are we here? What are we doing what we're doing? Is it because we want to provide an opportunity for LGBT athletes to have a great sports experience? Sure. But that's not all of our audience. There was a part of our local league that could care less if it was football, wanted almost just a social community to be a part of, to feel like they could be their authentic LGBT selves, and sports was just kind of the backdrop for it, and recognizing that that's an audience that we were serving. And then for us, again, in Salt Lake, we're in a red state. I recognize it. We're probably one of the most conservative areas for any local league. And we have a significant amount of our players that did not identify as LGBT. They were our straight allies. And I think the league was just as much for them as it was for us, because I began to see that the league could help the LGBT community as a whole gain broader acceptance and better understanding from our straight community members. And it's interesting because a number of players that would come out that were identified as straight, they thought they were going to come out and dominate beat up a bunch of gay guys, and the competition was great, but right. it was more amazing to see kind of how we changed their hearts and minds about how they viewed LGBT people. It wasn't some sort of abstract concept around LGBT rights that they would see on the news or read in the newspaper. It's that person that's in the offensive huddle with them that could get fired for being gay if they came out to work. It's that person, that they, play a nickel defense with that, could lose their apartment if their landlord found out they were gay. And it really kind of brought home and made stronger allies from our straight supporters by just sort of normalizing and becoming more understanding and more accepting. And, success on the field is great. Success off the field for me is where I think we measure the better impact. The win-loss record is nice, but, what do people think of us when we walk off the field? Or do they feel like we're a human being that needs, rights and equal treatment as much as they do? That's my view of success.
Right. Okay. So when you think about leagues, you think about people who've been in your position or something similar, and I know you've done this often, especially for the NGFFL and your previous position, but what advice do you give to those looking to create or expand their league?
Yeah, the biggest thing, and just for those of you who aren't aware what OT is referring to, for 2 years I was on the national board as the member of outreach services. So I was kind of the key resource on the national board to help the local leagues in the development of all the activities they were doing within their city. And 2 years in that role and all my years running the Salt Lake League, I really learned two things. The first is that each city, each local league is unique, and the needs, the headaches, the troubles that they encounter in one city may not be what another city experiences, and vice versa. The success, the non-issues that one city has aren't going to be mirrored in another, and so understanding
Right.
that your local league is unique, and you can look to the really successful local leagues in the NGFFL, like the San Diegos, the DCs, the Denvers, but don't be disheartened by that. Don't think that your league needs to be the San Diego for your community. It's understand that success for you is going to look different, and don't get caught in the trap of comparison and then failure to compete with some of the other leagues that are out there. And if you're thinking about doing a local league, it's small steps. It doesn't start with, gee, we're gonna have a 6-team league and we're gonna send 2 teams to Gable or two teams to Sin City. I look at some of the success that Chris in Minneapolis has done. It started by a pickup game with some friends.
Yeah. And
then had enough people come out, and maybe you add on, for those who perhaps don't know much about flag football, maybe some skills to start off your pickup game, and then maybe after that you go out to a local bar or restaurant that can kind of be your first sponsor. It's those baby steps to success that you're building upon a strong foundation, and don't run before you can walk. In other words, as I use so many analogies, success and what it takes to be successful is going to look differently for you, and don't start off too much.
I think that's extremely important advice, especially for the younger leagues or the leagues that feel like they are struggling because they are not as large, or because they are comparing themselves to a Chicago, New York, San Diego, these long-established large leagues. Sometimes success is taking a step back, reevaluating what you're doing, and making sure that it is in line with your mission and your vision. Sometimes success is a 4-team league. Sometimes it's a 12-team league. But like Ryan stated, it's really important to measure your successes based on what you're setting out to accomplish and not what other leagues have already accomplished.
Yeah,
I think that's great advice. So, speaking of leagues and the expansion of our NGFFL family with Minneapolis and Rhode Island now, and all the new leagues popping up, where would you like to see a league that we don't have one? If you had a chance to create a league in the city that does not have one right now, where would you want it to be?
That's a good question. I would probably say there's a number of cities where I think we could have such a great impact, and it would be great if we had a local league there. But I think of Kansas City, I think of St. Louis, I think of Columbus, Ohio. But the one that keeps coming to mind is Dallas. Dallas-Fort Worth area is such a huge LGBT community there. They're such a sports town. I mean, think of all those Cowboys fans. As annoying as they are, they could be part of our NGFFL team.
Go ahead.
I just say, the fact that we don't have one, it's just I know there have been outreach efforts. We've tried a number of things, and that's one where I'm just like I just can't understand why we don't have a league there. I haven't come up with the secret sauce yet for that.
Good news. 2 of our strongest NGFFL leaders, one from Denver, one from DC, have both converged with new jobs in Dallas. And I have already been in talks with one of the gentlemen from Denver, Mr. Maurice Head. He's already come to Houston. He's met with us. He is working on starting a league. Santos from D.C., also by way of Houston, because I will never let him live down that he is a Houstonite, for a Houstonian first. By way of D.C., just took a job in Dallas, and he's already reached out to Thurman and the NGFFL board about starting a league there. And these are two guys who have been a part of major successful leagues, and they are superbly passionate about getting a league going in Dallas for all the reasons that you pointed out. So I think Dallas is going to have a shot. I think in the next year we will see Dallas grow into something really, really spectacular.
And I think the key there is not that they're familiar and they already know how to bring success either because of DC or Denver. It's that they're passionate. It's that they really want to do this. That they understand and are excited about what the NGFFL and LGBT flag football, as a whole can bring to others. And so, it's that passion that you always want to see in those city leaders, and it's great to hear that Dallas may be added to the list. That's awesome.
Okay. As we get ready to wrap up, a couple quick questions. Any advice for those listening to the podcast interested in leadership roles but maybe apprehensive about it?
Yeah, don't be afraid to raise your hand. Don't be afraid to do something and fail and learn from it. But it's even more than that. It's like, don't be afraid to just do a little part. Maybe you don't have to be a team captain. Maybe you can, ask to help with one team or, do a particular task. Local leadership is always looking for help. And you can raise your hand and help whatever parameters you want around it. So if you're feeling a little nervous, put your toe in first, do whatever kind of tasks or jobs that you think you can do and then get confident about. But I can tell you, the majority of these leaders, it's the ones that felt bold, that were courageous enough to say, I'm going to try to take this. I'm going to try to take this responsibility on, and see what I can. So don't be afraid. Any
fun stories you want to share about your leadership or local league? I love a good fun story.
Oh, geez. Well, see, the problem is because I've been around the NGFFL and local leagues for so long, there's some really good stories, and I will tell you, there's actually two. So there's a funny, and then there's a kind of a poignant one. The funny one is as we alluded to earlier, 2011 Gable in Houston. It was the only Gable I missed. In the last 13 years or so. I was out of the country on vacation, and phone was turned off. I land in LAX to make my connecting flight. I turned my phone on for the first time in probably 6 or 7 days, and instantly a voicemail message from Jared Garduno, who used to be our national commissioner, pops up. I'm like, Jared's probably, hey, Jared. So I listened to the voicemail message, and it's Jared in a frantic voice. Ryan, I just heard about the Salt Lake player that got arrested and he's in prison. Let me know how I can help. Thanks. And that was it. That was it. And remember, I've been incommunicado for almost a week, and I'm like, what the hell's going on? And as I'm sitting dumbfounded, other voicemails and text messages start rolling in, and it took me a while to get to the bottom of it, but yes, a Salt Lake player during the Houston Gable was arrested and enjoyed the hospitality of the Texas Department of Corrections for a little while.
That story.
Yeah, we won't name names, but it's one where even to this day, I have to give him a hard time. He still plays in the league. Still a part of our local league. Give him a hard time for that. But I do want to point out that all the other times I've gone to Gable, no one from my city has been arrested. So the one time I miss Gable is the one time that someone gets arrested from my city. So
you're the glue, Ryan.
Take that what you will. The other real memory that sticks out on me is 2009. Gable was hosted in D.C. for the very first time. And that same weekend was the National Equality March. I think was what it was called. It was a LGBT rights march on Washington. And 2009 is a long ways away from where we are now in terms of LGBT acceptance. Right. At the time, that was a year after Prop 8 in California. Don't ask, don't tell was still on the books. I want to say the Matthew Shepard murder was maybe 10, 11 years. I mean, it was still fresh in everyone's mind.
It was fresh.
And going to D.C., our nation's capital, to compete in a great tournament, to make connections with my fellow LGBT athletes, but then on that Sunday, to be able to participate in that march, that's something greater that we all are here for, and it was very, very touching, very memorable for me that was made possible because of my involvement with the NGFFL.
Yeah, NGFFL really, really changes lives. One day, when I'm on the other end of this interview, you'll get to hear that story, people who are listening, but this isn't about me. I'm just the host. Ryan, we're going to wrap up. So any closing thoughts that you think the listeners should hear or things that I haven't covered?
We kind of alluded to a bit, but LGBT flag football and the NGFFL leadership and what this means to so many people, can't be overstated. Many of us, it was a place to find a home, to find a place of acceptance for what we are. Sadly, there are still some members of the Salt Lake League that have been disowned by their friends and by their family for being gay. So we lose sight of the importance of this being a safe space and how much it's built and encourages and empowers folks to be proud of who they are as an LGBT individual. And while it's nice to, score a touchdown or, have an interception, we're here for a broader purpose, for a deeper meaning to all this. And that's to give folks, a safe space to know that they're valued, that they can be who they are, and don't need to be ashamed and can be proud of it.
Excellent. Well, Ryan, I want to thank you for joining us on our inaugural episode of Outside the Huddle. For all of the listeners, each episode of Outside the Huddle will be made available through the NGFFL monthly newsletter, and they will also be available on our YouTube channel. We do hope you enjoyed the conversation. You were able to glean something incredible from all that Ryan just gave all of us listeners, myself included. This ongoing series will host some of the best and the brightest individuals that the NGFFL has to offer. So if you're one of those people, if you've been listening and you'd like to be a part of a future episode or have a suggestion even for someone who should be a part of it, let us know. If you enjoyed the episode, please make sure you talk about it on our Facebook page, on our Twitter account, our Instagram, NGFFL. Until next time we meet, everybody, be kind to yourself, be kind to all the others you encounter as you compete and connect and unite in the NGFFL. And good night, everybody. Have a good one. Thanks again, Ryan.